This week, we are featuring Fallout New Vegas. On the show today, we have Will, our creative director,
How's it going?
Andrew, our executive producer, and Dan, our AI programmer.
Hello.
And I am your host, Michael, who handles community and marketing for the studio. So let's begin. So, why are we showing Fallout New Vegas today?
Well, I mean, last week we did Guild 2, and we were kind of showing the framework for what we're trying to go after with imaginations. Everything being simulated, different families, a lot of different ways to play the game. We decided this week to go towards showing the core RPG elements, and at least in my opinion, Fallout's one of the biggest games I've been following since the '90s, and basically Bethesda for us is the framework how we want to approach RPGs, especially with regards to first and third person. So when you look at Fallout, you've got open world, which is a big part of imagination, especially because we procedurally generate everything. You've got the ability to build up parties, the ability to talk to anybody, the ability to interact with anything, and the ability to make choices and consequences on effectively everything. So it's a very core part between that and then Elder Scrolls, the other part of it from a medieval standpoint. So this gives us an idea of open world RPGs and the kind of functionality we're looking to get in imaginations, as well as a good look at a more modern aspect of the game when we get to guns and power armor and a more modern-esque kind of thing. So that's the big focus right now with Fallout New Vegas. We're going to do that today, and we'll kind of go from there. And we're going to be basically working through between everybody here today in terms of the various features we're after.
That sounds great. So, with regards to systems like stats, skills, health, and such, what inspiration do you feel we are deriving from Fallout? And what is Imaginations doing new?
Well, we really love the overall way that Fallout handles stats. The fact that the stats directly apply towards the skills and affect everything else about your character. To accommodate this, we have chosen to use a different system. It's kind of a two-part, where you have primary stats with body, mind, and spirit being involved. And the primary reason why we chose to take this approach is because we want this to be a very open-ended game for everybody to be able to have a different play style. And religion often winds up being a part of various role-playing games whenever you're playing them in a book form. And it often gets ignored when you're playing video games. So we wanted to be a little bit more all-inclusive, so we figured that it would be a good idea to include a spiritual aspect to it, as well as the mental and physical aspect we're all so well familiar with. This will actually have a profound impact on the way you play the game, as there will be the possibility of doing things like going into dreams and role-playing through dreams, as well as other spirit quests. All of these things tie together within our skills. These skills will give you the ability to do these various things, like, for example, a shaman can go into a drug-induced spirit dream, or perhaps you can go through a form of meditation, and these skills give you the ability to access these different ways of playing the game that, like I said, tend to get less focus in most games today. But all of the rest of the things that we're all used to, combat, crafting, all of it still tied in with emphasis on the stats being both singular and cumulative, so that you can have combined stats affecting skills directly. Overall, our approach on skills is kind of more you are what you do. We don't really want a class system per se, because those tend to be more like just skill containers. They're not really a class per se. They're just collections of skills that kind of relate to each other. So rather than focusing on that, we're keeping it more open-ended and allowing the player to choose how they play through the skills that they use and interact with the world accordingly. This gets into how it also affects our body. The characters, just like in Skyrim, or not Skyrim, the Fallout, they have different parts of the body that are represented. And each one of those parts of the body is either functional or in some degraded state. And on top of that, we wanted to combine this functionality with the more of a blood system as opposed to a hit point system. Basically, your body is a container of blood, and each part of your body has a certain percentage of it. So as you're going through the game and you're encountering various creatures or villains, or even that matter if you want to take the approach heroes, and you get into combat, you're going to take damage. And that damage can be anything from just a scratch, which takes a little bit of blood out of you, but otherwise heals up immediately. Or you can take a more serious hit, which now you're consistently bleeding without immediate maintenance by taking a patch kit of some sort and wrapping up a bandage around the wound, to even things that are more serious, such as having an arm completely lopped off. The important thing to note is that each of these has its own blood pool, as it were. And when the reservoir goes to zero, that limb is either fully incapacitated or has been severed. The overall health bar that you see at the top of the screen, or wherever you choose to place it as a player, will be basically a combination of all of these pools together as one to represent a single solitary unit. But the screen showing the different limbs and such will allow you to see where exactly you're injured so that you're able to better take care of your needs. That being said, there are a lot of critical points within your body, most notably the head and the torso. So like with Fallout, where you have a head that's been disabled or a torso that's been disabled, well, that effectively means that you're dead. Because, quite frankly, without your head and without your body, your main body, the limbs just don't matter. And that pretty much covers how we handle that.
Very interesting. I would hate to take a gunshot to my knee. And so now, so now we have a good understanding of the stats and skills. How do they pertain to your interaction within the world, such as the various encounters, especially within the combat system?
Okay, so anybody watch me right now? I decided to minigun a few centaurs. So, first off, everything is interactive in Imaginations, just like as it is in Fallout. So, on top of the fact that the terrain can be adjusted and dug out and rebuilt the way you want to build it, which is one of the big points of being able to have culture simulate, you also have the benefit of being able to interact with all the objects in the world as well. So if there's a tin can on the ground and the various stuff you'd salvage within Fallout, or a chair or whatever it is, you could pick it up and move it around wherever you'd like to move it. So that interaction is very crucial for the game itself. Combat-wise, and the wonderful Fallout deciding to crash on us here. Combat-wise, oh no, I fixed it. Look at that. Is very similar as well. So first person, third person is our main focus with your traditional Fallout, Skyrim kind of games here. You're going to have weaponry show up like what I have on here right now. That can range from, in the Stone Age, you're going to have basically spears and throwing spears and slings, and then as cultures express themselves over their lifestyle, you'll eventually have guns like in here in the more modern ages, and then futuristic laser weaponry, stuff like that. You can fight unarmed, so in the case of my character right here, we can go run around and punch whatever, this rock. It's not exactly very effective. I don't want to punch that dog. Nobody punches dogs. That's pretty mean. Yeah, we're not punching the large dog. Punching unarmed, melee, so your swords and things like that will work. You have different swords in Fallout. That can be approached in third person, which will have any kind of views here, as well as in first, whatever you prefer to play the game as. Um, and it's a wide range of weaponry. There's a lot of weaponry you can build. Here we go. So I'm going to punch these guys here, throwing. Okay, and throwing, which is another one here that wasn't really talked about, but you'll have very simple stuff, throwing rocks. Oh man, these guys are beating me up. Actually, there's a good point here too with what Andrew was saying here. So, kind of, I gazed at it a few times here, always talking about it, but this is kind of the breakdown what you expect here. So obviously, I'm crippled on my right, my left leg. This would be your blood here as well. So as I'm fighting here right now, this is what you'd be expecting with the various combat elements of the game itself, where you would have your blood removed in one area. But as you can see with my combat right now, as I'm getting my butt handed to me, the health is a 1 bar. So it's still very easy when you're playing the game to see how your health is doing or your stamina, but it's still a cumulative thing between all the various parts, with certain ones, head and heart, taking you out pretty much instantaneously. But combat will be beyond that too, so there's vehicular stuff in the future, mounted with a horse or whatever it is, or various animals that'll be in that same type of use. So a lot of options available for the combat aspects of it, from the interaction aspects of it, and then just overall encounters, stuff you'll find in the world. Since we're doing procedural, it's a very important thing for the game where we're able to just generate content on the fly, whether it's camps of raiders or bandits that pertain to a certain procedural mission, or disgruntled culture, whatever it is. You have a lot of options available to you for stuff you'll find, interact with, and just the overall combat feel of the game itself.
Excellent. Within the combat system, are we able to have any meaningful relationships with the various factions, even including building up the party of like-minded individuals to accomplish, bigger missions?
Absolutely. Next question. No, your reputation is going to play into a huge part in this, much in the same way it does here in Fallout. They actually have kind of a two-component to their reputation here. They have reputation, which is how the world views you, how your karma is. If you do good things to help people, to save people, your karma goes up. If you do bad things like killing innocents or stealing stuff, your karma goes down. And depending on how your reputation is, this is how some people are going to view you. Some people won't want to speak to you because you're either too much of a goody-goody or too much of a bad person. In our game, it's going to relate a little bit more to there has to be proof of it. You can't just go around and say that you're a great dragon slayer if no one's ever seen you slay a dragon, or you haven't brought back to town some, say, a dragon's horn. You have no proof of it. But if you have proof of your deeds, then this proof will actually affect your reputation. You can't be a thief and be hated upon by the town for being a thief if no one has ever seen you steal. And also, as far as the factions go, there's going to be a great number of factions. Almost most people that you encounter are going to be part of a faction. There can be factions that will span great distances, and you'll see them in every town, say as the smithies or the your salesmen that you'll find in all your towns that you can go and sell your equipment with, as well as more local factions that pertain to the individual towns as well. And as you work with these people and gain faction, you can get greater rewards from them and find other people to help accompany you on your missions from these different factions. And you can stack up just stack up many factions. You don't have to just carry favor with one faction. But also, as it goes, as you keep stacking your other factions, they're only going to be wanting to talk to you if your reputations are in line with their own views. So there will be a good and bad side to it, but you can definitely build up all kinds of individual and meaningful relationships with these people.
Excellent, Dan. So while exploring and accomplishing these missions with each factions, what do you expect to find within the world in terms of inventory and equipment? And is this equipment used by the player?
Yes, I mean, it kind of goes back to what I was talking about with the world being very interactive. Every object you find can be picked up, added to your inventory. The approach we have for our inventory is similar to, I guess, Diablo or Titan Quest or Torchlight, where you have a grid. So if you played Minecraft, you had the grid, and you can put each object took a certain part of that grid itself. However, like Diablo or Torchlight and games like that, the objects can be different sizes. They might take more spots in the grid, but every object in the game here, including the blocks that you dig out, take up some part of that grid. Everything is interactive, and there's a lot of different ways you can approach this stuff with the world itself. So, as I'm going around right now and fighting the guys in here in Fallout, you can loot different guys. Is he dead? Sort of dead. I don't know. Whatever. And then they have ammo box, pack of cigarettes, a more junk item, a weapon, an armor, a hat. So when you're looking at something like in Fallout here, so I currently have helmet and armor. And that's the two options you have within Fallout. So it's very simplified. It's very easy to go and run the game itself here. You have a lot of different options. Their breakdown is DT, which is the amount of damage it's blocked, how much it weighs, which these are going to be two very important things within Imagination as well, the weight on top of whether or not you can fit it within your inventory, and then a value, which that doesn't necessarily apply because you're going to have all these cultures, they have all different values based on an item, so that's going to be more of a perceived value based on the towns that you go to within the game itself. Now, in terms of our approach for the armor, for instance, you're going to have multiple pieces for your body: the head, the torso, upper arms, lower arms, legs, feet. So there's a bit more to it. This opens up, it's kind of important for the economy and everything, because if you just made one thing, there's not a lot of items available. You have a armorer who's very good at making gauntlets, another armorer who's very good at making breastplates. There's a lot of options available, so we want to have a wide range of custom armors, custom weapons, and then the whole metagame with trying to make these work for people, why they want to buy your gun versus the neighbor's gun selling the same thing, which is a whole different aspect altogether. So, that's the big thing right now. Everything can be utilized. Everything can be sold. Everything has some kind of perceived value. That perceived value is based on evidence as well. So kind of what Dan talked about with you kill a dragon, nobody sees you do it, you didn't really do it. Somebody might find it dead. They might put two to two together that you were there at the time, but if they didn't see it happen, it didn't happen. So, and this kind of evidence thing, you find this sword and you're fighting with this sword, and people fight with you through many battles, whatever it is. That sword starts taking up its own storyline. It starts taking up this fabled legend of this sword cutting down 1,000 orcs. It increases the value of that sword, and it goes back into the evidence, basically affecting everything. So a lot more value associated with stuff, a lot more value in terms of how you approach your armor, your weapons. Weapons show up the same way as it is here, where they show up in the game. Same thing with blocks, anything like that. Yeah, it's going to be very in-depth to support the economy side of things, as well as what options you have, either as an adventurer finding stuff, or as a merchant or a producer building stuff as well.
Excellent. You just talked about a dragon, and a special sword. Then, what about other various items you might find within the world? Like, what if you hunt creatures in the wild? Can you use the parts to craft new items? And then, could these items be sold to other people?
Yeah. So, anybody who's played Far Cry, it's one of my favorites in terms of how they approach the hunting. So, when you play a game, so for instance, here, let me go and try to find that coyote again here. Sorry I had to kill it. I feel really bad about it for anybody that likes coyotes, but it's got to be done for the purposes of this demo here. So if I loot the coyote, well, this one has nothing on it here. So the problem is, especially for when you're looking at cultures and the fact that they're going to utilize everything, so the bones, the skin, the meat, that's all available, and hunting is a pretty big part. And Far Cry approached this pretty well in terms of you would have to skin an animal and get the skin. You can use that for selling or equipment or something, and you can get the meat off of it to eat, which is kind of important for these cultures who are trying to survive at the beginning. Or the furs are used for clothing, and there's a lot of aspects of it. So the hunting will be very, very big in the game itself, especially at the early ages where there's not a lot of resources available. They're just trying to scrape together what they can to survive. Nothing wasted whatsoever, because any cultures wasting stuff are going to die out or be conquered by the cultures that are approaching things properly. And that applies. Gathering is a very important part. We started as hunter-gatherers. Same process applies. Farming, would be very in depth, and they all have their various aspects of the game itself. And then, like I mentioned in the last part here, there's gonna be merchants that buy effectively anything as long as they have some kind of perceived value for that item. So just because you have an item doesn't mean somebody wants to buy it. Uh, Generally, certain items, so a weapon is a weapon is a weapon. If you got a sword, somebody will buy it because it's a weapon. But just because you're carrying around a bunch of tin cans doesn't mean somebody wants to buy those tin cans, even if they're worth, you know, one bottle cap like in this game here. You got to find somebody who actively wants that particular item, or you need to build a reason why there's value for those tin cans before you can sell that kind of stuff, which is an interesting thing because you can now actively take an item like the example with the dragon and the sword, and create the value for that. So if you want to take that rusty sword you found in the middle of nowhere and get 1,000 gold out of it, go take it and do some things in front of people, or even lie about it and be persuasive about it, and now you take that rusty sword that was effectively nothing, and you're selling it for 1,000 gold to some sucker, and if that's going to play it, that's the options we give you in this game.
Elaborating on the merchant system, are we able to talk to the merchants, by extension, anyone else in the world? And do these people talk to each other? And do they allow us to get new quests and missions via some dialogue?
Absolutely. Communication is one of the hallmarks of any culture. You pretty much don't have a society without talking. So as far as the merchants portion of it, absolutely, you're going to be wanting to talk to the merchants because your communication with them is actually going to have an impact on your skill in negotiating better deals. That's pretty consistent a model even within Fallout New Vegas. You have a speech as well as a bartering capability, both of which would have an influence on the interactions that you have with the various merchants as well as other players, or not players, but NPCs that you encounter in the game. In fact, talking to people is going to be one of the best ways to get new quests as you're going along playing the game, because you'll find out from one person that another person that they had talked to is having a problem with rats raiding their farm. And so that gives you the opportunity to go and talk to that person to see if you can take care of that problem for them. But these are not static conversations that only happen for you. These things will actually be spread from one person to the next within the community, and you may actually find yourself competing with another NPC to go and take care of that farm so that the rats are no longer eating the food that is so vital for everybody. And because it's vital for everybody, you're going to find that the more something is centered on the survival of the culture, the more they're going to spread that around, and the more people are going to take action to end the problem or to find a solution. Same thing happens whenever you have, say, a sickness or a disease that impacts these people. You'll have to go out there and find a solution, but someone will be finding a solution. So communication is an absolute necessity for the culture to interact, not with just the player, but with the various NPCs within it. Like I said, this is probably the primary driving force behind generating quests within in our game. It was mentioned earlier with respect to building weapons and how another culture, or not another culture, but another faction may not like the fact that you're building these weapons. And so they find out from someone that you've been making these weapons, and then they hire another group of people to go after your shop, or even the convoy moving the shipment, to prevent it from getting to the ultimate customer. So this is a very dynamic living world, and communication drives just about everything behind it.
Okay, now we just covered combat, dialogue, and quests. Is there any other skills players can use to interact with the world? Like in Fallout, they have medicine, stealth, survival.
Yeah, so let's see here. So just going through some of the skills here, and we talked a bit about it earlier about, you have stats. So in Fallout, you have special, strength, perception, endurance, charisma, intelligence, agility, luck. Andrew touched on some of the stats that we have within our game here, and then your skills. So the skills will be similar, a lot more to the skills within Imaginations, but the general breakdown for Fallout, you have like bartering, merchant-based stuff, various weapons-based ones, guns, energy weapons, explosives, unarmed, survival, which is big on campfires and surviving out in the wild, which is a huge, huge part of Imaginations in terms of you're not near cultures, towns, or settlements, then you need to really have some kind of survival skills to build a campfire to stay warm. While you're sleeping, you have areas to kind of sleep at to keep yourself warm and safe. Things like that. Speech is probably not something you would see within a game like ours because it's more of are you saying the right thing versus some skill that defines whether or not you say the right thing. Sneak and lockpicking and everything like that will be a very big part of the game here. So if you want to play a stealth-based character within Imaginations and something you do here, sneaking, and then you'll have some kind of element within Imaginations to saying whether or not you are being seen or not. That's a huge part of this game here. I play as a sniper, and many times I decided this one here to be as a minigun guy. But primarily I play this as a sniper, and then within Elder Scrolls I play as a assassin with a bow and things like that. But this ain't good. That's not good. Yep. I thought it was going to happen. But you have stealth features in the Imaginations that allow you to survive and go that route as a thief or an assassin. You have a lot more options in that regards as well. Medicine, if you wanted to play as a surgeon or a doctor, or it could play a part as a shaman. Andrew kind of touched on that a little bit in terms of different worlds for when you go to sleep and stuff like that, or spirit worlds. You have that option in front of you as well in terms of getting into medicine skills and getting involved with making medicines on the merchant-based side versus just being able to properly administer various treatments to people as needed. That's a huge part also medicine-wise if you're going the survival route for the blood system that Andrew got into as well, because unless it's a superficial cut or injury, you have to bandage yourself up or you will continue to bleed out. It doesn't stop. So it's crucial to have a little bit of medicine skills to handle at least putting a band-aid or a bandage on yourself. But it's another option available to you when you're playing through the game here. And we'll have a lot more. We'll go into more depths over time with the different skills we have and how they're broken down and how the stats play into it. But there is definitely certain elements with Fallout right now that you'll see similar skills, a bit more expanded out because of how more involved our game is. But very similar premise here. One key thing, I know Andrew kind of mentions a bit here too, is that there is no respec functionality within our game either in terms of any skills whatsoever. So if you played a game like World of Warcraft, for instance, here, Mike's a huge fan of that one. If you make some mistakes in terms of how you build your character, you have the ability to restart again, make the skills the way you want. With Imaginations, you don't need to worry about that. You can mold your character however you want. So if you wanted to do the medicine aspects of it, or you wanted to do combat to start off with and then later on change to become a mayor, you can just stop using the combat skills, learn the skills that are more beneficial for you as being a political kind of character type, and they'll just build up. The other ones will deteriorate to a certain point, but you'll still remember various aspects of it, and then it will return back to those if you use those skills again a lot quicker than the first time you learned it. So a lot of options. There's going to be a lot of ways to play Imaginations, just as there's a lot of ways to play Fallout, and then Guild 2 last week, same situation there as well.
Just to add, kind of going a little further on the spiritual side of things, because we kind of glossed over it somewhat. It's going to be a very important aspect of our gameplay. It's going to be one of the ways that some of the technologies that are available are discovered by having these vision quests and other methods of entering into the spirit world via meditation and other techniques. So it's going to actually kind of expand the realm of the playable world as you would see it. And it also goes back into the concept of our primary stats, body, mind, and spirit. when you're entering into one of the spirit worlds, or for that matter, in the case of mind, like a magic realm or ether or some similar, the primary stat that's related to that is going to have an impact on how you appear to the world that you're currently interacting with. So if you're a big, burly, tough guy in the real world, but really weak spiritually, when you find yourself in the spirit world, you'll find yourself being this weak, sort of almost pathetic looking creature. It kind of gives a bit of a reality call to the players to know that just because you see yourself one way in one world doesn't mean that that's the way people see you in another world. These also tie in with the skills that we were discussing earlier. Not everything is direct interaction with the spirit world, but could be a sideways interaction like spirit sight. So when a person's watching you, they might be looking at you from the eyes of the spirit world and not the physical world, and able to gain information on you that you're not even aware that's available through that means because you didn't put any emphasis on it. The whole point comes down to it is it gives you a much greater realm of flexibility in styles of play and what you do, and makes everything an important capability within the game. So there's not going to really be any skills out there that are useless, dead skills that are kind of there just to make things look pretty. They will interact and be important, just like all the people that are playing in the game, as we discussed last week in the Guild 2. They're doing important tasks. Everything is there for the purpose of survival and improving the culture.
Yep, and just real quick here with regards to the survival aspects of it. So we've discussed it a bit with our backers a bit in terms of sleeping, and we discussed certain aspects with sleeping for a long period of time. Like for instance with EverQuest or World of Warcraft, going a little far further back there, but you might sit there with friends talking in chat for like 10, 15, 20 minutes because you're just waiting for your mana to build up or anything like that. And we've been trying to rack our heads around how do we make sleep something you'd want to do. So part of what Andrew just talked about was the spirit world, and the fact that as a shaman or with certain drugs, whatever it is, you can get into this whole different world altogether that you can interact with that is completely separate from the main world. And there's going to be something like that in terms of dimensions and religion and a lot of other aspects of it. Now, the other thing we were thinking about, and for anybody who likes Christopher Nolan movies, is Inception, is the dream world. And again, this is another big benefit with going with procedural worlds here. We have the ability to generate stuff on the fly. So what we've discussed, and again, this is not something we're 100% going to do, we're going to see how it goes in terms of the time involved with it, is to have a dream world so that when you sleep, rather than just sitting there going, man, I can't wait to play this game again, this is awesome, you're actually in a whole different world, and the actions you make within the dream world is effectively simulating your REM sleep. So the better you do within this one, the better you're refreshed when you wake up out of this, but you're doing something for that entire period of time. Now, this would be entirely optional. It would be part of, say, something like a hardcore mode where you would need to eat and sleep and drink things to keep yourself from being dehydrated and stuff like that. Now, if people really want the dream world to be something that we would build into the game as a normal feature, then it'd be coming down to how long you have to be in there. Like right now, it's a 1 hour window for how long the game will run through a full day. And we were looking at, considering we sleep 8 hours generally per day, it's a 24-hour day, we were looking at 20 minutes sleeping, which is a bit prohibitive. It's a bit too long where you had to basically do this every hour. So we'd have to find a nice medium for the time it would take to sleep that also fits with the day-night cycle for all the NPCs, as well as whether that time spent is you doing something versus just sitting and waiting kind of stuff.
Very awesome. Given everything that we just discussed so far, how does all this factor into various cultures within the game versus everything we're seeing in Fallout?
Let me just start this one real quick here. It's going to be something that the three of us want to talk about because it's been something we've all played Fallout. And one of the, actually, I was at the place a little while ago, so let me jump over here real quick in the game here to the NCR Correctional Facility. There's for anybody that's played Fallout, there is a prison outside of the first town you start at. And the backstory for it, again, sorry, it's been 6 years out. Mike was yelling at me earlier for kind of talking about some of the storyline here, but this has been taken over from the Guards. This is part of NCR. It's one of the factions basically trying to recreate California based on U.S. kind of government standards and capitalism. And these guys were effectively going through and being forced through labor to rebuild a railway system to move troops and supplies between California and Nevada, with this area being right outside of Las Vegas. The prisoners stage a coup and kill all the guards off and take this over and turn this into a fortress. Now, you have the option as the player to go through and support the NCR taking it back, but like many games where you are the hero, nothing happens until you actively go through and make that entire move. Now, one of the biggest aspects of Imaginations is that you are not the hero just because. You can be a hero and make the steps necessary to get to that point here, but in our game here, let's say that this prison existed and the prisoners took it over. The NCR, if that was a faction, would actively be trying to take this back here if they have the resources to do that. And that is a key point, because if this is a culture who's losing resources and being attacked by other cultures who are winning and taking over all the stuff here, if they don't have the resources to take stuff back, that's just part of the game itself. You're going to have cultures that take over certain areas and eventually conquer an entire culture. But they will make an active effort to take this place over. And that's part of the dynamics of this game that we're building right now, is the fact that stuff's going to be happening all the time that makes sense. And it's not about you doing anything. It's going to happen based on what would have happened, even if you existed or didn't exist. And I think that's one of the things that's kind of drawn us into this game here, and why we wanted to build this game, is a game that is interesting both by the actions that you take as well as the actions of those around you through the NPCs and the AI and everything, and having the AI have the understanding of doing this stuff to make the world a lot more believable than just static, I do this thing, a scripted event happens, and now there's some changes in the world, but it's entirely driven by the fact that I had to do these things for any change to happen whatsoever.
And that's pretty much the real core emphasis behind the game. It's not just a matter of you being what you do, because that's a important thing that we've had throughout the whole concept of the game, is you are what you do, which is why we don't enforce moral standards one way or the other. It's all based off of the cultures and how they react to you. So if you do evil actions in front of, say, a group of barbarians, they're going to love you for it. But if you go to a nice civilized town and you kill the sheriff in front of everybody, they're going to hate you. You are what you do. And it's good and bad is all perceived by the various actors in the game, which goes back to what we were discussing earlier about evidence and whatnot.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing. There's going to be multiple elements of that too. You're going to have the culture-to-culture interactions. You're going to have the fact that every action taken not only by you, but also by the NPCs doing the exact same things you're doing. They can do missions. They can go through and build towns. They can build a house. They do everything that you do. If you can do it, they can do it. If they can do it, you can do it. And every little thing, even if it's a small action that you take, can have some sort of butterfly ripple throughout everything else within that world. And on top of that, you know, when you're looking at this stuff where it's like the very minimal actions create massive change, we also talk about narrative elements. So we haven't talked too much about it up to date here, but when you look at Fallout New Vegas, it's one big storyline. You have NCR trying to take over Hoover Dam and everything like that. And it's a really big storyline. Takes you a long time to get through it. Very good story. This is probably one of the best games ever made, which is I love Bethesda games. And Fallout, I'm freaking out for Fallout 4. I won't lie about that. I'm sure they all can attest to that one. But great storyline, a lot to do. You can go all the places. You can do them in the order you want to do them and everything like that. Awesome story. Now, when we look at Imaginations, you have this storyline, quote unquote, between cultures and how they interact with one another. And that creates a very interesting story over time, because anything can happen at any point. If a new leader takes over a culture, they change their entire aspects in terms of maybe they were economics based, and now they're military and they're trying to conquer stuff. A lot of content involved with it. Narrative elements throw a wrench in this entire system here. So they basically spit out a story like you would see at Fallout New Vegas into the world and see how everything reacts to it. So let's say we're in the medieval eras. You know, we're going to be doing Skyrim in the future here as well to show the medieval aspects of magic and everything. And a dragon shows up. Alduin shows up in that one. That can happen, or a similar story here theoretically within imaginations. The difference is now you have all the cultures trying to react to this while they're dealing with all their everyday kind of stuff. Maybe there is a civil war going on between two factions. I don't know. You know, could be that something in the storyline for Skyrim. And they're trying to deal with the Civil War appropriately, again, because it's not a scripted situation here, while dealing with this dragon coming back and the whole prophecy and this and that and everything else. It's all available in front of you. And the outcome, it can go a million different directions. Maybe, in this situation, Alduin wins. And the whole world blows apart, whatever it is, and gets rebuilt again, and a whole different thing happens. You know, or maybe he hasn't won yet, but the dragons have taken over all the cities and burned them to the ground, and all the people that sort of live on that planet are hiding in forests and underground, and they've changed the whole aspect of the entire game, and now there's groups that are built up that go and actively hunt dragons down, kind of like the Blades were in Skyrim. And this is all reactionary to not only the actions of the individual cultures working with each other, but also the these narrative elements thrown into the game itself. Now, these would be big storylines, so this would be something that, you know, we might have to spend a year or so building it. We implement it, and then there's a chance for one of these things to fire off in the game itself. And now you have all the elements of this happening in it, as well as the interactions with the cultures. This is also something with narrative elements that you or a NPC can accidentally pop out as well. So let's say, for instance, that there is a gate to hell that was locked off thousands of years before the game even starts up for whatever reason. And then, you know, you're going through all your missions, you find this door, and there's like a giant puzzle and a bunch of quests you have to go through to open the door up. And you open it, and you find it was a barrier to keep this hell gate closed. So now you just opened up Gate to Hell, and then this demon comes out and beats the crap out of everybody around you, and you run away, and now Hellspawn are coming into the world and trying to take it all over, and the whole terrain's getting burned up, and the skies are red, and this is all you just going through and opening a door. You had no clue whatsoever. You thought it was a reward or something inside there. So narrative elements are both something that can be randomly spawned over the course of a gameplay, and it's going to be spaced between these, so it's not like, oh, good, I just beat Fallout's storyline, if that was an example of it, and I'm going to do Skyrim's one right afterwards. But also something that's actively done by the player and by NPCs just going about their lives doing whatever their task is.
And that's actually kind of one of the points to note, though, is that these narrative elements do not have to be fixed in timeline. So you could have the events of, say, the Alduin-esque dragon taking place in the middle of a Fallout-esque in afterworld, the World War III apocalypse. So it's like you'd have apocalypse on apocalypse. There's no reason why these events have to be limited to just one specific era. After all, we all know that volcanoes wait for no one. They blow up whether you're an advanced culture or just barely out of the Stone Age. It's all basically procedurally driven, but these elements also come into play on top of the stuff that's generated by the various cultures and their interactions.
Yeah, I mean, that basically covers it all. I mean, the narrative elements are going to be awesome. I can't wait to see what happens if you take a Fallout story. And this is one of the things, the modding will play in this as well, where we're going to have these tools available to build your entire storylines out and just spit them in the game. And just see what happens when you put like 10 storylines in here and seeing how the cultures react to it and everything like that. But it's going to be a huge part of the game to see multiple cultures fighting amongst one another over like the remaining resources, and then Fallout story pops in there and there's an actual nuclear war that starts because of these actions, even though that can also happen just from standard interactions between them. And now you're trying to go through the storyline for this stuff here, which is very in-depth, and there's dialogue specifically for it, and you know, a lot of elements we built just for the storyline to go through, and the way that not only you can try to go through to do the storyline, but also all the other NPCs react in the same way. So, you know, in the situation with Skyrim, there's a potential for somebody else to be the Dragonborn, and you get to see how this thing goes out by you watching the Dragonborn accomplish this, but you're still a very major part of the fact of taking out Alduin. So let's say, for instance, that even though you're not the Dragonborn, you do go to the Greybeards, you do learn how to do the shouts, and you do learn the ability to accomplish the stuff, and you're the one that kills the dragon, even though the Dragonborn is the one that was supposed to have to do it all. So a lot more options, a lot more interesting things going to happen on top of everything else there, and it's one of the things that we're super excited about to see what happens when it expresses itself within the game.
That sounds great. I would like to thank everyone for watching the Imaginations Inspiration stream. This stream, we covered stats, skills, health, interactions within the world. We covered combat, dialogue, and quests, meaningful relationships and reputation, interactions within the world. We also covered inventory and equipment, exploring and accomplishing missions, hunting in the wild, and selling loot to our merchants. We were also able to talk to merchants, and finally, we learned about the elaborate narrative elements and how they play in Imaginations. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can leave a comment below or ask questions on the forums. Next week, we'll be playing Giant Citizen Kabuto, my favorite game. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. We'll hope to see you next week.
Thanks a lot. See you next